You're listening to Make It, a podcast by Bonsai Creative that helps aspiring professionals in film get where they're going faster by dissecting the advice, knowledge, and insights of professional creatives in the film industry. I'm your host, Chris Barkley.
Hello, my name is Sevan Najarian, and I'm a visual effects artist, director of cartoons. I'm known for several Channel 101 things, including Most Extraordinary Space Investigations, as well as the beginnings of Rick and Morty. Currently, I'm working on a new cartoon for The Whitest Kids You Know, possibly directing that, and a full feature cartoon.
Sevan Najarian, welcome to the Make It podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. I'm super pumped to have you. I've spent all day smiling and laughing, watching your content. You're so creative. To give the audience a little bit more background on who you are and what you've done, I'm going to read a little bit from your bio. And as I always say, of course, this is the internet, so anything that's wrong or not up to date, you can feel free to jump in and correct me at the end. But It says, Sevan is a seasoned VFX artist with extensive experience working on several TV shows, including the Sarah Silverman program, Scorpion, Last Man on Earth, Ghosted, Wet Hot American Summer, and Mystery Science Theater 3000. His experience surpasses post-production and includes animation, camera, and lighting, as well as directing and acting. Sevan started his career at Channel 101 and was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2011. He started Midnight Kids Studios in 2013 and has expanded to 3D animation, virtual reality, and a full production stage in his backyard. He loves cats and arguing about religion and politics. Yeah. Originally from Modesto, California, Sevan is trying to follow in the footsteps of giants from the same town, like George Lucas. You also worked on Greenleaf, all of Greenleaf. You've got some projects coming up. And as you mentioned before, you were at the beginnings of Rick and Morty. You worked with the likes of Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland, who were also from Modesto. And we'll definitely get into that. But I want to start sort of at the beginning, if you will, and ask you, you grew up in Modesto, California, and this is by your own admission. You kind of described yourself as having this humble upbringing, this life in a farm town, and yet somehow you grew into this prolific creative artist and animator and filmmaker and even businessman. How do you explain this?
Well, I wouldn't say prolific. I mean, I would still say that I'm trying to continue to be humble, even where I'm at now. But I think I identify with the George Lucas's aspect of like living in a farm town idea and then moving to a big town to do something and make something of myself. It really was a risk and it was a gamble. Like I really do think I stumbled upon all this success that I apparently have. Like it took a lot of hard work and not a lot of goal setting. It was more of just like, I just want to do this and I'm going to do that and I want to do it good. And it's just more and more of that kind of attitude just lent me places and opened a bunch of doors and got me out of my small town mindset and just allowed me to think like, oh, I probably should start a business and hire people and share the wealth and like, build a stage in my backyard. Like that bio is funny. I think I wrote it. And I was like, I need to be thorough about all the things. It just sounds so like self-serving to say like I worked on this and this and that. But honestly, the thing I guess that gets across is that I've been busy.
I think so. And it's true. I mean, we barely scratched the surface. You have 112 credits to your name between TV and film. So you've you've been to work, and you're kind of, I would say, a serial creative, because you make a little bit of everything, including your own podcast, which you let out from time to time.
Yeah.
I am curious, staying back sort of in your beginning days, though. I mean, your background is, I believe your dad is from Baghdad. Is that correct? Immigrant from Baghdad?
Yeah, my dad's Armenian, but he was born in Baghdad, and our family were like refugees from like the First World War.
Yeah.
And so he was lucky enough to get sponsored to come over here in the United States and start a new life. But in that process, he became a Jehovah's Witness, and then met my mom, who was also a Jehovah's Witness. And so I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness by default. So my dad, he's on crutches. So I think that just appealed to him in a way where the promise as a Jehovah's Witness is like, you, after Armageddon, if you survive, you get to walk. You get to be whole again. You get to walk again, and so it appealed to him. So he was a smart guy. Besides that, so I would say if he wasn't disabled like he was, he probably wouldn't have fallen for it. But he did, and I was subjected to it. I have a lot of resentments about it. I'm still dealing with a lot of my resentments about it, but today I'm not involved with that at all. I wouldn't recommend it. It was a very difficult life, especially as a child. It was chosen for me. I didn't choose it. It was more of like a choice that was given to me, but in a sense of like, you either choose this or die, you know? So
yes,
I felt like it was a bounded choice that was laid before me, and it took a while for me to get out of that. So that, in a small town like a farm town, really had that sense of like Luke Skywalker being told like, no, you can't go and play with your friends. You have to help me on this farm. And in my case, it was go door to door. So.
Yeah, I've known a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, and I was first introduced to it strangely enough through Michael Jackson. I was in the Michael Jackson fan club when I was a kid.
Absolutely.
And I would always hear about it through the newsletters that he would send. Or I guess I should say my sister Angie was in the fan club, but I was sort of derivative, like getting all the derivative sort of mail through her.
Oh, he actually prophesied, or like he proselytized through his fan mail?
From my memory, it was mentioned. Yeah, I don't think he was saying you should be a Jehovah's Witness. I think it was more like, here's my bio kind of thing.
That's what
like,
I believe.
Here's something about me and my family and kind of thing.
Yeah,
so it's really interesting, and I'm glad you said it the way you did, because at first I thought it was like a deal with the government, like, you become a Jehovah's Witness, we'll let you come over here. Like, it's like, I did not know that exists. I didn't know it existed. That would be wild. But I guess the question that comes out of all that is, were they supportive of you going into this line of work?
No, they weren't. I think that was one of the main battles of like me moving to Los Angeles is, well, what are you going to do? Was the question. And I'm like, I'm going to make movies. This is what I want to do. Look what I went to school for. Mm-hmm. And their thought was, well, just don't do anything bad. And in that case, that means don't work on rated R movies. Don't work on anything that's like holiday related. Like if the show I'm working on is making an episode about Halloween, you should probably stay. I mean, these are all the things that I'm assuming that they didn't say it, but that's all the stuff that they were afraid I was going to get involved with. And on top of that, this is basically Sin City #2, right? Besides Vegas. So like I can get in all kinds of trouble. So yeah, they weren't very supportive of that. They wanted me to be a preacher and a door-to-door person. And it's one of those things where it's like, when you have children, it's a tradition to like devote one of your kids to God. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I was. I was the one that was supposed to become a preacher. And it just wasn't for me. So not much support, but I think nowadays they love hearing about what I'm working on. So they probably softened up to it a little bit.
I think parents do come around in general. That just seems to be the case. At first, it's a lot of fear and protection, and then it turns into, oh, we must have raised a pretty good kid. They're staying on their own 2 feet, and they're like making a life for themselves and carving it out, doing the thing, you know?
Yeah. Once they're over all the disappointment, then they can really see you for who you are. You really have to, I mean, I don't know how many times I've said, I'm an adult. I could do this if I want to. I'm an adult. I'm making adult decisions. This is how it's going to be. Get used to it. So I think you just have to be strong like that with your parents sometimes. So
you have a quote. It says, "It's all about good luck for me. I've never dreamed this far or had goals that match my position I'm in now. I've stumbled into all the positions I'm in. I figured that if I'm just a hard worker, the opportunities to shine would come, and they did." So talk a little bit about that quote to us and what you mean by that. And then also, I'd love to know, when did you know you were good?
It's an interesting question. So that's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately of like, how did I get here? So I, like I said before, like I started off as a person that just liked to make things. So I went to school doing that. And then I met Justin Roiland in college, and I didn't think like, this guy's my ticket, like we're going to be big or anything like that. Like, I just thought like, oh, this guy's fun to hang out with. He's like-minded. I'm going to make cartoons with him. So we did. And then we kind of stumbled upon like making something that people liked. So we made like a bunch of commercials for a local record shop in Manteca, which is close to Modesto. And so we kind of got known for that up there. And then Justin moved down to Los Angeles a year before I did. And then he's like, hey, come down. Like I'm just a PA down here, but like, it's kind of fun. And so I was scared to do that, but eventually I did. I just took a risk, took a boat down here and burnt that boat, which the metaphor that I've been told to do. And took that risk, and it was really hard at first. And I was like, I had no money. I stayed like at Justin's house for a little bit until I finally got a place. And then I got a job, not because of my experience, but because of somebody was willing to say they knew me. So it was a lie. It was like, this person knows me. They're recommending me for a job. I'm going to have to pretend that I know this person. I've never met them. So I got in, and I recommend that actually. I feel like that's if you really want to break into something, like it is true. You got to know somebody and just like pretend sometimes, like if you have the skill and you're a hard worker, it doesn't hurt to, those little white lies to try to get into the industry, because it's really unfair. You really have to know somebody. So that happened. And then just like, I just kind of, I don't know if I stumbled upon Channel 101, Justin and I, and then a couple other friends. So we started making cartoons for them. And then kind of stumbled upon my next gig. So I was working at like daytime talk shows, which is like, whatever. That's not what I want to do, but it's a job, and it was steady. Mm-hmm. And then so I stumbled upon working in a Comedy Central show called Too Late with Adam Carolla, which was like, that's what I want to do. I want to work in comedy. It's just, I'd rather do that than the Sharon Osbourne show or Tyra Banks show, right, which is what I was working before. So that was more my thing, and I kind of felt like I stumbled into that. And so all of a sudden, people around me were like congratulating me and like I don't know, praising me for all the things I'm doing. And I'm like, I'm just figuring it out. I'm not doing it like with any intention for praise. I'm just figuring this stuff out because it's fun, and it's like I just want to make things work. And then I met Sarah Silverman and Jack Black, and it's like just all of a sudden I'm being invited to their parties and stuff, and it's like, I don't know what's going on. Like I did not plan this for my life, and it's just, so it just happened. So and then just perseverance and constant work, and like I've probably worked. I was just thinking, like, I've worked in Adobe After Effects, probably like maybe 30,000, 50,000 hours or something like that. Wow. So I guess that makes me like a master of it 3 times, 5 times over, depending on
for sure
what definition you go by. So it really is just like, I just put my head down and worked, and then I got these opportunities, and I was always a kind of person that was like behind the camera or sitting at the edit bay. And I was offered to like be in front of the camera and act with Sarah Silverman, and it kind of broke me out of this little shell, and all my awkwardness was on screen and people loved it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to embrace my awkwardness. I think I make awkwardness look good, I guess. So that's my thing. And people loved it. So I just started getting better at just acting in general. So these days I do cartoon voices every once in a while, and especially for my own stuff. I've been directing cartoons lately, so I do a lot of the scratch tracks, and it really helps my directing for me to act out things ahead of time. So, but yeah, so stumbled upon that. I mean, and then I'm just lucky to be friends with Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland when they become famous. So by association, I'm like invited to things, and like I don't know, just I could say I was involved with the Rick and Morty beginnings, and I could even say that I turned down working on Rick and Morty. I turned down a job because I was my part of my business, my visual effects business, was taken off big time at that time. So I'm like, I can't work on Rick and Morty. Little did I know that it was going to be like the #1 cartoon in the world. And I missed my chance on that one.
It really did.
Yeah.
It really did blow up. I mean, it's my son's favorite cartoon for sure. And so many. Well, he's 18 now, but
okay.
Before, I mean, this is 10 years ago. But
yeah,
but that's I found out about it through him. He sat me down and made me watch an episode of it. It's like, oh, this is actually very funny. And it's interesting hearing that there's so much to dig into there. It kind of sounds like you kept getting invited to places, kept getting chances, and through that you gained your confidence and kind of knew you were good at that point. Yeah. And just for the sake of the audience, the college you're talking about is Modesto Community College, where you majored in TV and film.
Yeah, Modesto Junior College. It is a community college, but yeah, Modesto Junior College. I think George Lucas went there as well.
It's amazing. They have an amazing alumnus there.
You know what's funny though is they got rid of that department, so I don't think the film and television department is even there anymore. So,
unbelievable.
But that's where Justin and I met, and so I don't know. It's like they should think about it before getting rid of that.
It's so insane. And you talked about burning the boats, and I just wanted to comment on that too, because so many creatives that are trying to make it or taking their big shot the way you described, the one thing they don't do is truly burn the boats. They make a move, let's say to LA, but they have this safety net that might exist that allows them just to go back home, or allows them to like take a job like that, not the kind of job you take when you're still trying to pursue your dream, but the kind of job that requires all your attention and is truly a career. And they'll say, well, I burned the boats. I went, I did it. But when you look at the stories, you're like, oh, you didn't really burn the boats. It wasn't really fuck or walk for you, so to speak.
Yeah. You held on to something. Yeah.
Right. And then, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. For me, it was, I think I was more, it was just an opportunity to escape my religion in a way too. Also I just thought like, you know what, I just want to do what I want to do. And there's nothing going to stop me from doing it. In fact, when I first moved here, I was not successful in trying to get a job within the first week or two. So I applied at Best Buy, which is where I used to work in Modesto. Yeah. And I got the job. And then another production job called me, and I was like, okay, so I could just turn down Best Buy right now. Like literally the next day I got a production job. So I'm glad I never had to do that, but I was determined to just stay here until it happened. So if it takes that, then it takes that. But I think for the most part, what was the saving grace is not just getting a production job, was doing my production job during the day, and then afterwards we just made all our Channel 101 stuff. So I really was working a ton of time, like probably 16-hour days, probably more sometimes.
Wow. And we'll definitely get into that in this conversation. Were you always good at animating, drawing, filmmaking? At what point, was there a moment, let's say when you were growing up, where you said, okay, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life, religion or whatever be damned?
I don't think there was really a moment like that. It was started as a hobby. I remember some friends of ours just like made this like commercial for this fake like product and they decided to send it into America's Funniest Home Videos, and they were constantly rejected. But it was funny to watch what they were doing. They were just being silly. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And they were doing like random camera tricks, like holding the camera upside down and like putting their hands on the ceiling and like pretending like they're walking on the ground, right, with their hands. So I'm like, oh, wow, you could do that. So I had a camera and I started doing the same thing, and then I was like, oh, you know what? Like I actually like doing this, like trying to figure out how it works, camera tricks, and like so I put a bunch of Legos in front of the camera and like started doing stop motion, and like and I started learning computers at the same time, and I think I was animating frame by frame stuff in like, I don't know, MS Paint or something, it was called something like Act. I think it was like a precursor to like a PowerPoint. So basically, if you think like it's a PowerPoint kind of program where I'm MS Painting and then sending it over to PowerPoint and like and then pushing play between the slides. That's how I figured out how to sort of animate in a weird, crude
That's amazing.
way. But I didn't really hold on to that as like, this is what I want to do with my life. I started learning Photoshop and like, and then I took classes at MJC, and my main focus was just like, I just want to do television and film. I don't care about anything else. And I never graduated. That's all I took was just like, just electives and none of the general ed. And then I took enough to where I could just like teach myself. And I think I was the one person that was like overly excited to make films in our class. And so I ended up like learning all the shit jobs, like lighting. Nobody wants to light, like, so I'm like, all right, I'll do that because who cares? Like, I like lights. And that's to this day, I'm huge with lighting. Like I have my whole stage. It's a whole big thing. I have a full on light grid, a bunch of DMX, systems with like all connected to an iPad. And like, I'm just constantly, like I could put on a full on DJ show if I wanted to, or I could light random sets on a green screen if I wanted to, just for my laptop, my iPad.
That's amazing.
So I think just it goes along with this stumbling into it. It's like I guess I'm good at this. This is a hobby. Oh, I'm monetizing this hobby. Oh, I guess I'm good at it. Audience is laughing at my jokes. We don't have to make like really super smooth cartoons. We could just do it shittily and people still laugh because the content is funny. And so like learning all that stuff, I didn't realize I was good until maybe House of Cosby's when we first had a viral video before YouTube was even around, before even the word viral was even coined.
And that is a perfect segue into my next question, because we've mentioned this a few times, and I suppose at this point it's the elephant in the conversation, which is what in the world is Channel 101? It really was sort of your breeding ground, if you will, for doing all these different tasks and learning how the game sort of worked and getting good and getting confident. So for our audience, tell us, what is Channel 101 and how did it sort of build you up and become instrumental to your career?
Yeah, I think the short answer is, because it's kind of a complicated thing, it's kind of hard to describe, but the short answer is Channel 101 is a monthly film festival where you make a 5-minute short in a form of a television show, and the audience watches maybe 10 of those, and they get to vote for their favorite 5. And then if you get enough votes, you get to make your next episode. It was a live screening, and also there was a part of it that existed just as an online community back in the day before YouTube. So it was a way for creatives like myself, or like the people like Lonely Island, like Andy Samberg, to make videos and put it somewhere on the internet before YouTube. But at the same time, it was like a live show. It was a competition. And so I would say that that's like my second film school. I learned what I needed to learn in the community college, and when I moved here, it became just my practice, the thing I wanted to do all the time. I think it was a matter of 6 months of living here before I found it, and it was just starting. Probably it was like 2003. I think it just started in 2002. But in 2003, I got involved with it. It's only been a few months old, and we're kind of on the ground floor. And it was like, oh, this is stuff we already do. We do shorts. It's comedy. It's wacky. It's like, cartoony stuff, and we fit right in. And so for the next like 10 to 15 years, I was heavily involved, and I think that's where all my credits on IMDb comes from, because at a certain point, somebody put all of the Channel 101 credits on IMDb, and all of a sudden I look like I was super busy during that time, which I guess is true. But like all of a sudden I had this like huge IMDb page, and it's kind of ridiculous to see some of these titles on my IMDb page. It's like, what is this? 2 Girls, 1 Cup, the show? What did you work on? So it was a breeding ground for a lot of interesting people like Tim and Eric, Dan Harmon. There's a lot of people that came out of it, like Andy Samberg, and there's even a New York chapter, and a lot of people came out of that as well. The guys from Human Giant were part of it. So for a bit, people were looking at it. I think around the House of Cosby's time, that's one of the shorts we made. That was pretty popular. Around the same time, another short called Yacht Rock was made, which was also very popular at the time. A lot of eyes were on us for recruitment. And I think that's how Andy Samberg got his chance on SNL. And us, including Justin, got a lot of eyes on us for our cartoon work. And so that was kind of just the beginning of us being like recognized by the rest of the like normal Hollywood, because we're playing around in this little microcosm Hollywood called Channel 101, learning how to make pilots and get rejected constantly. So doing that over and over and over again, I think just kind of strengthened those muscles for making things.
Yeah, you just kind of touched on it as well, which is I have this theory about Channel 101 and why it was so effective and why it launched so many people. One, I think for the animators in there, it's probably a reaction to the success of South Park, and then studios and other production companies wanted to come in and compete against that potentially, and sort of the rise of Adult Swim at the same time. But also, I think one of the reasons everyone got so good was that Channel 101 was an immediate feedback loop.
Yeah.
You got to find out what people liked and didn't like right away. So why aren't there more immediate feedback loops in independent film for those learning to create and wanting to create and wanting to put their stuff out there? And how did it affect your skill level, that immediate feedback loop?
I think, the deadline of once a month was difficult because we all had to work, and this is all done for free. So it's not like we're making any money at Channel 101. We don't ask for money. Screenings are free. So you had to commit yourself in a way where you really just had to get it done. Like no matter what, like figure out a way to get it done. So that pushes you to like figure out like interesting ways of making films, and also not caring. Like it's perfect when you stop editing, like things are better when you just stop tinkering. Like just, and that's the lesson you learn with like a monthly thing like that. It's like, just stop being obsessive and like, or just get it mostly there. And then that's enough, like you learn like to not overwork on something. And I think at the time, there wasn't, like I said, there was no YouTube. So for creatives that wanted to make things, they really had to like know how to create a website, like or like make a bunch of tapes and send it to a bunch of places, like the whole film festival circuit. You had to do that, and that costs a lot of money. So at that time, Channel 101 was just giving us this place, and it was very comedy centric, but it was just giving us filmmakers that were comedy centric to a place to like just put something and had an audience, and it was really popular back then. And I think we don't have stuff like that now is because of YouTube. I think there's just like people saw the technology going towards online videos, and they capitalized, and now it's really diffuse. There's like, Funny or Die, or like at the time there was something called Super Deluxe, and there was all these, like even Comedy Central had their own thing going on for their website, and other things. Like there was all kinds of things at the time just like popping up after Channel 101. And I think that ultimately turned into the YouTube and Vimeo and all these other places. And because there's so many places to put something, that means there's a lot of crap, that just means that nobody's, like, the gates are opened. There is no gatekeeper anymore. And for Channel 101, it was definitely, there was gatekeepers, and it was the most creative, successful creative people were the gatekeepers. So they were the ones that said, okay, this is funny. This is our sensibility. This can be in the show. And YouTube's not like that. You can put anything on there. So I think the minute it was easy to put things on the internet, it like things like Channel 101 kind of, it's still around. I still do stuff for it sometimes, but things like Channel 101 just became less important to everybody, because now you could monetize on YouTube as a star, like just by talking to the camera. You don't have to be that creative.
That's right. And well, it's interesting. YouTube did come along and eat the world, it seems like, of video. Right. What I like about Channel 101 is that it's a curated sort of a viewership that's interested in what the creatives were making. So I don't even think it's an issue necessarily of everything is crap, or there's a lot of crap out there, because you're right, there is. It's more of an issue of there is no curation. So there's so much stuff. I think the viewer's actually in a paradox of choice. Hell, yes, I'm in a paradox of choice every day when I turn on my Apple TV, and it's like there's 50 tiles for me to click on, and there's a deep library of content beneath every single one of those tiles, right? Like, yeah. So it does make for winners and losers, and people do just miss out on stuff that's fantastic. But if you do the work that Channel 101 did early, which is, hey, this is our curated audience, and here's how we're going to do it, and we're actually going to have sort of some ranking here, that gave an immediate feedback loop that made you better. I don't think YouTube views are enough to make a filmmaker better, if that makes sense. Like that's not what happens to me. No, yeah, there's something about sitting in a live audience in a theater and watching them react to the crafted jokes that you hope they laugh to, and they do, like, or they don't, and next time, like, those kinds of jokes don't do well in a big crowd, And also, the first theater we were screening Channel 101 stuff at was a place called Cinespace, which was like a club, like a bar, like multiple bars, and there was people, like servers serving you food and stuff. Like, people were drunk. Like, you really had to cut through that mentality sometimes. So I think that's why we did so well, because Justin Roiland's sentiment was, let's shock the audience, and let's just try to throw as much as we can at them, and like laugh real loud and like cut through the chatter. Like, Justin has the strongest voice ever, so his voice, like, it just echoes in everybody's head. It doesn't matter if you're drunk or you're not paying attention or you're in the bathroom. So that was also another challenge, curating for a live audience that might be drunk. It's a really great point, because when I would play, I started my career in creativity, I would say, in music, and still do music, still have a studio here at the house and write. But when I would be performing on stage, you would have to find a way to let people know you were about to play a song, especially at these like bars and like Like these are like dive bars, you know? Like when everybody's paying a bunch of money to see you on stage, they're fucking quiet because they came to see you. But if they came to get a drink and some food and that you happen to be playing, you have to let them know you're there, and you figure out so the first time you do it, you fail. Like they're not paying attention to you, and then you realize, okay, I'm going to have to sing a really strong chord, really loud, right off the bat. This is the thing we're going to do, and everybody's going to stop, and then I'm going to have everyone's attention. On YouTube, I just record my song the best I can. I'll lip sync the whole video. I record it in a studio. I'm pitch perfect, and if they click on it, they're watching sort of the best of me, and they're there to watch it. So I don't get better at performance. I just I just get views and clicks. Yeah. So it's a great point.
Producing yourself.
Exactly. There is one place that works like Channel 101, but unfortunately it isn't in film. It's in design, and it's a t-shirt company called Cotton Bureau. And what they do is they have designers design a t-shirt, and everyone comes and votes what the best designs are. And if your design isn't voted in the top, then you're not able to sell it. Yeah. And if it does get voted to the top, they put it in their store, they sell it for you on your behalf, and then and they do all the warehousing and all that stuff. I think it's kind of a brilliant idea, and maybe they took it from Channel 101.
Crowdsourcing your content is always a popular thing. I don't know. Sometimes I don't trust the audience though. So it's also too, sometimes the audience just like was different every time. Like you'd see, like you'd ask like, who's here for the first time? And like half the people there would raise their hand. And it's like, wow, you really have to just like make things for people that are just coming right off the street. So you can't just do serials. Like, I don't know. Sometimes the audience bugs the shit out of me, but, because like you just want to make like a solid like story arc across several episodes, and you can't if somebody's just like, I just want to see people kicking nuts, like, or I just want to hear my favorite yacht rock songs, I don't know. So like, and also I heard recently that sometimes people would tune out when a cartoon would come on. So, and that just kind of bummed me out.
You're right. Yeah. The audience can be a razor. That's for sure. It can go one way or the other. But you guys did plenty of that stuff that you're describing. And so I think you won with that. I think there was an episode of one of the shorts I saw where you had Sarah Silverman fart on someone, and it was hilarious. And it's Sarah, and it's nothing but just Sarah Silverman farting. Yeah. And I thought that was funny as hell. There's nothing else to say about it. Farts are funny. Yeah. So I get exactly what you're saying. You've done a lot. What are your credits or productions do you consider as being the most consequential to your career, and why?
So I worked on the Sarah Silverman program with Rob Schraub directing. He's one of the other creators of Channel 101 alongside Dan Harmon. They both created Sarah Silverman program. So I think that was my first time working like professionally as a visual effects artist. Before that, I was just doing Channel 101 visual effects. So it was like cheap and just get it done kind of stuff. And like, if it looks cheesy, whatever. So Sarah Silverman, it was the first time I actually got paid to like make visual effects. And so I think my professionalism like boosted quite a bit there because I was making it for television. So I think that's one of the main jobs I've had that boosted my career because, I just got to be really creative. It was basically just doing like Channel 101 with a huge budget. So, and also working with Rob Schraub, who's a great director, and he knows what he wants. And it's always hard to work for a director that just doesn't know what they're doing or doesn't know what they want, and they ask too many people and they're just not confident. But Rob is not that. He knows exactly what he wants, because if I can't do it, he'll try to figure out how to do it. So I've worked with other directors like that, like David Wayne, where it's like, oh, if David Wayne doesn't know how to do it, he's probably not going to ask you to do it. So he learned how to use Photoshop, and he sent me like a real quick thing. It's like, hey, do something like this. And it's like, I appreciate that because he has a vision and he brings it to a certain level, and he's just saying, clean this up for me. And I love that about it. So I think that's where I learned it on the Sarah Silverman program. And from there, I feel like I really did a lot of things that I didn't know I was capable of doing then. And it translates to today, where I feel like I'm on that game now. Like I feel like I could pretty much do anything in the visual effects world, to the point where my business that I have is basically automated. I can step away from it now, because I've trained people to do it. And so I'm able to step into more directing gigs for cartoon work.
I love it.
That I've been doing lately.
A lot of people interchange VFX with SFX. So visual effects with special effects.
Yeah, bugs the shit out of me when people do that.
Talk to us about the differences and where the lines blur, if at all.
So there's a big difference. On set, a SFX person is a person that's triggers like smoke and fire and stuff like that. Like it's an actual person on set that's in charge of creating special effects on set. Visual effects is usually referred to as digital effects. It usually means, and if I'm on set, it's usually I'm just supervising. I'm not actually doing anything. I'm just supervising and making sure things are being shot properly for the visual effect to be done properly.
Right.
So visual effects is more of just like it's done afterwards, not on set at all. Sometimes you do previs, a pre-visualization of an effect just so that the director can approve it or like pre-approve something. But I often get called a special effects guy, and I'm not that. I'm not the guy that brings like the spark wielding guns and like, or these are the people that are probably pyrotechnics also. Like
right.
They're the ones that rig up all the squibs and stuff. Those are special effects people. Visual effects is a job where it's done digitally. It's done in the edit. It's a post-production job. It's not a production job.
That's very good. Very, very well articulated. And one does wonder, I guess we'll get into this in a little bit, but one does wonder if VFX will sort of eventually swallow FX or special effects.
Special effects, yeah.
Because there really isn't anything that you can't create now. Like the software and the tools are so powerful. You could make an explosion that looked like an explosion.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, I guess it just comes down to money. So like, think about it this way. So if you have a whole scene, if you don't have a visual effects budget, which could be expensive, if you just have to hire somebody with a mister to like mist the scene for atmosphere,
right.
That doesn't need to be a visual effect. It's actually cheaper to just have the entire thing shot with a mister in the room. I would say squibs they look better, in my opinion, when they're real. It also helps the actor. Smoke is easy to do visual effects. That's super easy to take off their hands. Sparks and stuff like that. Fire, all that, like all that kind of stuff is really easy. But sometimes if you just really need like a ton of shots with the same thing over and over again, it's best just to have a visual effects or special effects guy on set and have them take care of it. Like if you're doing, like I worked on Children's Hospital for Adult Swim, and we were doing this big, huge finale fight, like a battle scene. Mm-hmm. And it was directed by the Daniels. And they kept asking and they're visual effects people too, but they kept asking for like practical special effects on set. And so we would have all these cannons, shooting debris, like there's a certain amount of like debris flying and falling that you can't really replicate. So some of that stuff is really helpful to have done practically on set. Another part of special effects is, I guess, would be considered like blood stuff. So if you're doing like a Walking Dead episode, like those guys are nuts. Like there's a lot of that stuff that I cannot replicate, and it would be great if they just did all that work. Like we do get we don't get a lot of credit for enhancing that stuff, and I'm always bugged by the fact that the people at Walking Dead never ever say how great their visual effects guys are at putting their their practical effects together, because it is a partnership a lot of times with those kinds of jobs. So
right, it kind of answers the question, the part of the question about where those lines kind of blur.
Yeah, I always try to introduce myself to special effects guys, and and just let them know, like, I'm not trying to take your job. Like, I want to make your things look good, and you always make me look good. And if you have an idea that we can work together on, then let's do it. So I always love those guys.
It would be odd if I didn't mention the fact that the last year was the pandemic, the coronavirus, and what that meant to a visual effects artist. But I found something you said, this quote.
Okay.
And I don't know how you did this, and I want to talk to you a little bit about it. But on the Real Life Sci-Fi podcast, episode 241, you said something needs to happen to white people.
What? I said that?
Yes. Once white people are inconvenienced in such a way, there could be a revolution. And on January 6th, white people got just mad enough to go to the Capitol. How did you predict this?
Oh, I did. I predicted that. Wow. Holy crap.
By the way, and for the audience, this was said on March 16th, 2020.
Oh, wow. I totally predicted that.
You did.
Crap. I think that's just something I've always known. Like, I think, like, I don't identify as white, even though, like, I'm half white. I'm Armenian, so I'm Middle Eastern. But so I feel like I identify with people that have, like, suffered or, like, had to overcome stuff. So I always had this, like, resentment towards people that felt entitled. So I really felt like, we're all fat and lazy Americans. Like, there really isn't anything. Nobody ever changes unless there's pain, right? So, and there's a lot of people out there that are disadvantaged, that are constantly in pain, and they're trying to change things, and they're being knocked down. They're not allowed to change because the status quo. A lot of people in power don't want these people to change. It's not painful enough for them. So I thought, like, well, once white people are pained, then they're gonna cry. Like, I feel like I've always thought that, like, white people really need to be disadvantaged in some way to create a revolution. And the sad thing is it's not the revolution I was thinking about. That's not the revolution.
It's like when you rub on a genie's lamp and you wish for something, and the genie gives it to you literally, and it's not the way you expected to get it.
I mean, I think it was probably more in line with, like, the women's movement that happened. I think I was more in line with something like that. It's like, yeah, white people are finally being in pain. I mean, yeah, it had to take, like, women to do it. But at the same time, there's a lot of white people in that movement. But yeah, it's just sad that it's, like, what I predicted isn't exactly what I was hoping for. Not at all.
How did you do in 2020? Was it okay? Was work kind of rough during the virus?
Yeah. So
I guess we're still in the virus. I don't want to be flippant, but during 2020?
Yeah. So 2020 was fine. It was like, a lot of times I know at the beginning of the year what I'm going to be doing all year. So I had a plan. I had a couple of clients. I had a few shows. I knew what their schedule was. I was working on this Disney show. I just finished it. Actually, we're going to probably finish it tomorrow. It's called Just Roll With It on Disney Channel, and they have an audience. And the minute it was like an audience full of kids that actually interact with the show. So they're really important. You can't just get rid of them. So in March, when everything came down and everybody was shutting down, that was like the first show that shut down because they had a bunch of kids, so they just didn't want to put them in harm's way. So instantly, like, the main job I had was just, like, gone. And we just went on hiatus. I sent everybody home. I basically said, like, take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, because it's probably going to be a thing. Because I know whenever I don't have something to do, my mental health could suffer. So that's what happened work wise. And then I decided to break up with my girlfriend at the time, like, literally a week into the shutdown. And so then all of a sudden I was alone, in a big house that I usually use as an office space for all my employees. So it's just me and a bunch of computers and just like at my own devices. And a depression, like, really came in because, like, I just didn't know what to do because I just didn't know what to do. I welcomed the break, and I thought I was like, oh, this is fine because I don't go anywhere anyways. I work from home. I could continue to work from home. But the work dried up. So it was like several months of just nothing coming through. And I forgot what I ended up doing. I think I ended up just starting so Channel 101 created this audio version of itself called Frequency 101, and it's basically a podcast, but it's the same thing. It's just the same kind of competition. You submit a 5-minute audio show and it competes against other audio shows, and so I just dove into that because it's like I can just, we could just record our voices and like do sound design and make soundscapes and submit that. So I kind of just jumped right into that, and then all of a sudden things started happening. Like the industry kind of came back. Oh, before that though, I was contacted by all kinds of people asking me about cartoon work, because they're like, well, production shut down, like what are we gonna do? Maybe we can make a cartoon version. So I don't know how many times I've bid on a cartoon version of a show, including something like Pen 15. And then when the budget and the schedule came to the people that I was bidding to, they looked at it and were like, they had no experience with cartoons. They're looking at it and like, oh, I guess we can't afford this and it's going to take too long. That's not what we wanted. So everybody's just thinking like, oh, cartoons are easy and cheap. But when they see the numbers, they're like, oh, that costs the same as making a real thing, like making a live action thing. And I was hoping we were going to save money by doing this. And so just a lot of people had these ideas and it just never panned out. And that was several months of that through the summer, until finally Starburns, the Starburns animation company, hired me as a producer to work on random cartoons. And I did, I just started working on this thing for FX, which we're almost done with. And before that, the Disney show came back and they had this genius idea of just like reusing footage of their audience and just like pretending the audience was there the whole time.
That is kind of genius, actually.
And then the amount of work that came in was like, can you remove these masks from these people in all these shots? So like, yeah, sometimes the crew was in the shot on purpose. And then so they send it to us and they're like, can you remove the crew's masks here? And so that's what we've been doing for the last few months, fixing that up. And then Delilah is starting up. So production's like
your new show on the O Network, right?
On the Oprah Network, yeah, on OWN. So production just started back up, and I think since October they've just been at it. And I think there's another show called Tacoma FD that's probably going to start back up, and I'll be working on that as well.
You're a busy man. This is exciting for you, and you're right. I mean, depression is an odd thing because you don't even realize you are, and then one day you look up and you're waking up at noon and you're like, why did I do that?
Yeah, there was a lot of that. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, got back into the weed.
All the things, right? Exactly.
Yeah, all those things.
I'm currently in the process of losing my COVID-15, and that was kind of the way I displayed it. I just ate way more than I normally would eat during 2020, for sure.
I definitely gained some weight.
Yeah. I put it on. I packed it in. It's no secret that in the world of VFX, hours and overtime pay has always been a concern. The amount of hours one is working, you mentioned the 16-hour days. Mm-hmm. I assume that might be why you named your studio Midnight Kids Studio, because you're up all times of the night, working on this stuff. But there is a real concern about burnout. What can be done about this? What should be done about this? I make myself burn out. So, and I had to learn how to do that, how to not do that to myself. So I know that there's some effects houses that are kind of like sweat sweatshops, and they're like really strict and they just make sure they get their bang for their buck or whatever. But I created a culture at my
place where it's like, dude, if you're stressed, take the day off, you know, like don't work more than 8 hours. It's not, we're just making movies. We're not, you know, we're not saving lives. We're just making movies. It's not that important. Like, so that's my attitude now, so that nobody else gets stressed. Like I kind of take on the stress myself, but lately I've been doing better with that lately. So I've been like making sure I don't work weekends, making sure I don't work more than 8 hours, maybe 10 hours, maybe 10 hours a day sometimes. Like, all right, at least if I'm going to work that long, just take breaks. And these days, like, it's great because I could just hire people to do, like, it's delegating was a hard skill, but now I'm way better at that. So in my business, there's no burnout, hopefully, I don't think. Another thing I've noticed that some companies like really crack down on like wasting time. Like, oh, while this thing renders, I'm going to read this article, or I'm going to watch this YouTube thing real quick, or I'm going to mess around. Like, I'm going to just Zoom with the other guys, and like, we'll just kind of have an hour-long discussion about whatever while we work. I'm okay with that. I read an article that said people are actually more productive when you let them do that. And I think visual effects places get a bad rap for like cracking down on it. Like they literally like installing firewalls so you can't access YouTube, you know, like we need that though. Like in our world, we need to find references. We need to be inspired. We need creative input in order to creatively output. So I'm not opposed to people kind of, in air quotes, wasting time while they work. Because I think that's important to keep your mental sanity while you're doing tedious things. And like I work so hard sometimes that my wrist hurts. And I would not want that for anybody, because that's my moneymaker. And I know that that's a lot of other people, like people that draw for me. Sometimes their wrist hurts, and sometimes they get tired of drawing the same thing over and over again, but that's their job, you know? So I don't mind taking breaks, resting, and just making sure you take care of yourself. And that's just the way I run things. And I know that visual effects in general gets a bad rap for, I think you just got to be realistic. And there's those stories about like Rhythm and Hues and other companies that like overpromise, and then they're also over budget in the end, and they have to eat it. That's a rare skill to figure out, how to promise correctly, how to bid on things properly, and how to know that you have the funds to do something. And I think a lot of times in the bigger projects, people just so want that thing on their resume that they're like, yes, we'll do it for 10 million, even though it's going to cost us 12 million. And that's going to put us out of business, but we want our name on it. You know, like I don't like that attitude. And luckily that hasn't really happened to me that often. So I think that's the biggest thing. And we're so small, we're a small company, so we're not getting $1 million gigs right now. We're just slow and steady. We have about 17 employees right now. So, we're not huge.
A lot of the I guess original sin started in VFX around subsidies and the pressure that subsidies put on studios. So
the American studios,
American studios. Do you have any thoughts or ideas? Have you had ideas around how you would change the way subsidies work for VFX workers?
Well, it's hard. It's hard to say. Canada, you can't give, you know, we can't regulate that kind of stuff. So like if Ireland wants to pay an effects company to work from, or to hire from them, you know, like you can't, it's hard to not do that. It's hard to not be attracted to that. I think that doesn't really affect me that much because, like I said, I'm a smaller company. I think that affects bigger companies where they're really looking at the millions. So a lot of times I've heard like to do visual effects on a movie, it's like straight up $10 million that a visual effects company will get.
Could be more. A lot of times it could be more. It's 30. Sometimes it's a third of the total production budget, depending on what the film is.
I think 10 million is like kind of a typical like just general movie. And you can do that in Canada for 8 million. Like it'll cost you 8 million to do it in Canada. So the studios pressure you to find the best price. So I think it's almost like the American studios are like not stepping in to say like, you know what, we should keep this in the United States, and we'll give you the extra $2 million because that's how much it costs, and get it done here.
Well, it's a crazy thing because I don't know if they can, because the profit margins are so slim that if they lose the 2% or the 3% or the 4 or 5% on their subsidy,
right,
then now their entire film division is in the red, and so it becomes this. It's like visual effects provided something to film that allowed film to be something it had never been before, right? Like now we can have the Transformers, now we can have the Matrix, now we can have these big bombastic movies that please so many audiences worldwide and have the potential to make so much money for the industry and for everyone involved in it. But now you can't go back. Like you can't you can't unwind that, and so now you absolutely need the subsidy to be profitable. If your film just does okay, now if it like blows out of the water and it's like Titanic at the time, then you could be okay. But even Titanic, I think Digital Domain. Yeah, they did the Titanic and they underbid by $9 million and went out of business. So
yeah.
This happens even on films that make more money than, because the rate is fixed, and so I guess you don't have the concern that those bigger houses have. You're saying because you're not going to like pick up the company and move to Vancouver or move to the UK to get to meet the demand of the studio.
Well, also too, I try to stick to television, which it's way more cut and dry. Anytime I get involved in a film, I always regret it. Every time I get involved with commercials, music videos, any of that stuff, I always regret it. Anytime I do television shows, cut and dry, perfect. Like I always can make my budget, always. I think the idea behind that is like, it's not just a flat rate. They might have a flat rate in mind, but I'm bidding per shot. Like if you want to give me 100 shots, I'm gonna give you an average per shot, price. And if you want to give me 2 more, that average goes up, or that, my bill goes up. So, and for the most part, I'm able to stick to their budgets. But because there's an air date, because there's a deadline and it's pretty specific and it needs to be done faster, there's no toying around with like, oh, we should tweak the color here. Or can you show me like different versions of this here? Or like, on movies, like, they'll do all the work and then they'll show it to the director and the producers, and like there's so many cooks that they're like, that's not what I wanted it to look like, but they did it all and they did it under their budget, and they're like, can they just like change this? And that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for like one little note sometimes. So that's where the problem comes from making visual effects for movies, is that there's too many opportunities to change something and overages occur, and that's not how the structure of a movie budget is for visual effects. For TV, it's like, hey, we can't afford this, I guess we'll just cut around it, So, and I prefer that, and that's the attitude I prefer. So I tend to stick to the television shows as much as I can, because that method of working. And nowadays it's like you can make full on movie quality TV shows nowadays. So I'm fulfilled with the type of work I want to do. It used to be like a stigma, like I want to be a filmmaker, not a TV maker. But we're making films on television now.
Yep, I completely agree.
Just the size of the screen is the difference, So I'm satisfied with what I've chosen to do, and I'm always regret working on a film, because sometimes those film schedules just are never ending. You never know when you're done. You never know. But for a TV show, it's like, oh, this is due next week. All right, great. Next episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I would challenge anyone to say that the cinematography and quality in, let's say, The Crown wasn't equal to, any film you'd watch. Yeah. I mean, that stuff is so rich and lush. It's great work. And you did mention that you have taught your employees how to do it. And it, VFX is almost in autopilot. And so here's a question that we like to ask on this podcast, which is, if you had 1 month to teach someone how to be a visual effects artist, what would be the first 3 things you would teach?
Well, I would teach Photoshop, right away, because that's a really essential tool. And then I would teach. I would make somebody watch as much Star Trek as possible, preferably the Next Generation, because that's where my eye leans towards as far as effects goes. And then I would just have them watch me. I've been doing a lot of tutorials, like internal tutorials over Zoom just for my employees. So I just make them watch all those.
Got it.
And a lot of that is just like, this is how I do it. There's other ways to do it, but this is how I personally like to do it. And I like to, spend less time, work smarter, not harder, and be organized and all this stuff. So yeah, I would make sure they learn Photoshop, watched a bunch of TV and movies, and just like critique the effects. Watch a bunch of breakdowns. Like, there's a lot of visual effects breakdowns out there. Figure out how things work and ask me anything. Like, I'm willing to teach whatever. So, and I'll make a tutorial. I mean, it's not going to be released to anybody but my employees, but I'm willing to make tutorials just for that. So
I love it. Thank you so much for that. And Sevan, this has been such a fun conversation, my man. This has been great, and I've really enjoyed it. I can't thank you enough for spending the time. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media, the internet, and maybe even where they can see some of your work.
Yeah, if you know how to spell my name, it's SEVAN-NAJARIAN. That's pretty much my username everywhere, so you can just look me up, like on Instagram, Twitter. I don't usually do Facebook. I don't really pay attention to a lot of the social medias, but yeah, you can also look up Midnight Kid Studios website. It's called Mid Kid Studios, MIDKID Studios.com. And a lot of our work is there. I have a Vimeo that's pretty cool. There's like a high definition version of House of Cosby's on there. High definition version of Doc and Marty, the cartoon before Rick and Morty that we made. And also check out Frequency 101, the podcast. It's just one of my newest obsessions, and I make a show on there called Enter the Dark. We're on like episode 5 right now. It's just a really fun, like, horror movie, audio only. So, and you can anybody in the world can submit, and we want competition. So submit something. It's easy. It's just audio.
All right. You guys heard it right there. If you're listening to this, get your audio work together, your content together, and submit it. And who knows where it can go. There's your open invitation to all you creatives out there that are listening to this. And I'll end our conversation on this, Sevan. It's no secret that you're a fan of Alan Watts and Carl Sagan and Bill Hicks, and you like politics, religion, and sci-fi in general, whether it be Star Wars, Star Trek, George Lucas, whatever. Yeah. And so my question to you is, what is your best argument for or against us living in a simulation right now?
Oh my God. Let's see. I think if it's a simulation, it's not what we think of as an act. It's probably cannot be defined in our own terms of what we think a simulation actually is. I think it's an unexplainable thing. I think it's absolutely possible, and it's probably more probable than not. But does it fall into the definitions that we hold as what a simulation is? I don't think that's true. I think it's more complicated or less maybe it's simpler than we think. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of those kinds of things like determinism and stuff, it's like you can fall down a hole like worrying about, are we in a deterministic society? Or you could just live as if you're not, live as if, whatever you believe is true, I think. And you'll be happier. Whatever it is that you believe, just live as if that is true. and you'll be so much happier.
Right. And I always think that the best argument against a simulation is that it's just a proxy for the God story again. It's like I'm living my life to make the master of my avatar happy, so that he doesn't turn the game off.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's why I think it's not what we think. Whatever it is, it's not what we think it is somehow.
Absolutely. Oh gosh, Sevan, I could talk to you probably for another week straight.
Yeah, we could do this again
on this platform. I would love
There's other topics we can talk about.
Absolutely. We're going to hit them all. And this has been my pleasure. I wish you the best of luck with everything that you do, and a wonderful 2021 coming up. Thank you so much, man.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care. Bye. You've been listening to the Make It podcast. To find more information about this week's topics, including links to relevant blog posts, projects, and indie creatives, please visit our website at www.bonsai.film. If you haven't already, you can join our podcast community on Apple Podcasts or the podcast app of your choice by searching for Make It Bonsai Creative, and the show will pop right up. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at _Bonsai Creative, and Facebook by searching for Bonsai Creative. And of course, if you're looking to take a big step towards your filmmaking success, go to www.bonsai.film and click on Book Us to schedule a free discovery meeting and needs assessment. You have everything to gain. Until next time, be better, be creative, be engaged, and thank you for listening.